Rock. The Rock decides he wants a raise. And he was pretty new. He'd been in the Nation, he'd been Rocky Maivia, and it's just coming out. If you smell what The Rock is cooking, the eyebrow, singles action, it's just happening. And his contract comes up. And he knew that Stone Cold Steve Austin was the highest paid wrestler, making $1 million a year. So The Rock walked into Vince's office and said, I want 2. Vince said, okay. Listening to him. He said, but how'd you come to the number of 2? How did you get to I deserve $2 million? The Rock told the truth, which was not very much. I heard Austin's making 1. I know I'm close with him right now, but I think with the push and the way the winds are blowing, if he's getting 1, I want 2. And Vince said, I can understand your thinking. He said, but if I'm going to pay you $2 million a year on a contract, goes by like that, right? 12 months. If I'm going to make you my highest paid guy, I need you to understand everything about the business. I want you in meetings. I want you on phone calls. I want you talking with Briscoe and Linda and Jim Ross. I want you to learn this side of that. You just came to me to produce $2 million. Now I want you to learn what it is I have to do to have that $2 million to give to you. It's important to Vince. If I'm going to pay you that much, I need you to at least be able to sympathize with what I have to go through to have it. And The Rock said, okay. So The Rock started learning. He's sitting on meetings. He's listening in on phone calls. He's getting mentored behind the scenes. He comes back to Vince. He says, all right, I want that $2 million, but I did what you said. I learned all about this business. I learned where that $2 million is going to come from. And Vince said, did you really? And Rock said, yeah. Then Vince said, then you know that this year you're going to make $12 million. And it was one of those moments, but that led The Rock to an eye-opening experience, which ultimately today has placed The Rock on the board of directors for WWE. So he did, in fact, learn the business. And I share that with you because we've never had anything like that happen in MMA. But we do have guys that on their own need to do that. I mean, I have watched guys. We just saw this with something called GFL, Global Force League. Am I right about that? Was it GFL? But this just Fight League, Global Fight League. But this just happened. And guys came out and they were upset they didn't get paid. And their entire argument was, we had a deal and you said that you would pay me. Now, that was also predicated on an understanding that a show and an event happens and gets off the ground, but I side with those guys and I want them to have it. But if they believe they could get $300,000 to fight so-and-so, why didn't they just go do it? They have Facebook, they can go live, they can go YouTube. I mean, there's lots of ways. They could walk into DirecTV, Time Warner, Time, Cox Cable. They could do a million different things. Why did they not just grab that guy and go do it? That sure seems like a lot of money. And they're simply going to tell you, because we're not worth that much money. I cannot rent a venue, put up a cage, tell all my friends and neighbors, and bring in $300,000 to cover my spread, another $315,000 to cover his spread because he out-negotiated me. In other words, you start working down and realizing because the fight's not worth that much. And so now I'm upset because I ran into a bigger sucker who believed it at one point and told me that he would give me that much money. And it's just one of these interesting spots where when that happens to somebody in MMA, I do reflect back to the story that The Rock told about the time that he went up to Vince and asked him for the $2 million. Vince said, go learn this business, came back and gave him 6 times what he was asking. But Vince got something he wanted, which was an understanding of what needs to be done to bring that money in. Ian Garry puts out an interview. Now, Ian Garry interviews do pretty well. He's not setting the world of media on fire, but I will tell you, as a guy in the media, an Ian Garry topic does pretty well. People are interested in him. And Ian Garry puts out a piece that says, I am next. I fight for the belt next. He even argues the point, I'm the one that injured Shavkat Rakhmonov. You will not see Shavkat fight this entire year. Big news. That's big news. First off, he did injure him to a degree. Secondly, we were not armed with the information that Shavkat Rakhmonov, in a best-case scenario, returns in 2026. We did not know that. And if he wants to take a bow and credit after what he's done, fine. Not to mention he's an alternate fighter, allegedly for tomorrow. Now, I got to word it that way because the weigh-ins went down today. I didn't get a real great look at him, but I did take a look and I did not see him there. But either way, if he has agreed to be in the position, then I, as a pundit, am going to come out and argue that he's the number one contender, which is largely the argument that he's making right now that I'm telling you about until he offers his spot to Islam Makhachev. Gary says there's nothing any of us could do if Islam came up. He's a world champion. If he enters our division, he's not coming up for contenders matches. If he comes up, we're all going to have to step aside, and that's just a very interesting statement to make. Because you can Sandhagen yourself. If you were to bring a guy like Islam up, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes or if they even want him up. You have no idea if there's a purgatory or a punishment, even though if you open your eyes, we see a guy named Sarukian in that very purgatory right now. And it didn't have anything to do with a performance or losing a fight. And I'm only sharing for you, if you're in Ian Garry's spot and you stand back as though the world wants to see Islam fight Jack, if there was ever a time to flex your position, it was now as the number one contender. And the idea of Islam bumping up and stepping in front of Garry, if you look at the numbers, if you look at purely what the fans would rather see, Gary's got some real wind at his back right there. But it comes to a screeching halt when he himself says, I'm not the guy, Islam is. And even though nobody in MMA is ever going to allow you in their office, give you 6 times what you asked for, or invite you to learn the business, even though they're not going to do that, it would be very wise if you, as an athlete, could step back and see what goes on the other side of the desk. And there can never be a time, in fact, there can never be an appearance in time where the inmates are running the asylum. So if Islam moves up and gets a title fight just because he says so, why didn't Ilya? And if you're willing to step aside so that Islam can have an opportunity that has not yet been afforded to him, what is it you're saying to Charles Oliveira? And before I, as a pundit next week, completely ready to come out and tell the world that Ian Garry should be next, how do I do that now? How do I tell you that Ian Garry is absolutely next? He hurt Rakhmonov. He's the reason Rakhmonov is out. He's the number one contender. He was an alternate for the fight between Ball and Jack. How do I come out and make those arguments when Ian Garry just said the opposite? I really thought the days of the Sandhagen were behind us. But apparently, Ian Garry just pulled a Sandhagen.